This is Snid with the Bloodbane Alliance on World 11. I'm going to do this video about resource production basics. I'm going to go ahead and first cover stone, wood, and iron. Those are the three that basically have the same properties. Discuss later how to balance between them, but the same three production types all share the same qualities. This here is a quarry, which is for stone, but you have a similar building for wood or iron. Basically, the production building itself produces a certain amount of base resources per hour. That number is then modified by a number of factors based on what's touching that resource. Primarily, first tier, that number, the base, is modified by the cottages and/or natural resources. A cottage will affect stone, wood, or iron, where only a stone resource stone will affect stone and wood. But they both have the same effect. They have a tier 1 modifier, so you take that base of 110 in this particular case and you add to it all of the adjacent cottages based on their level. By the way, that base goes up as the level of the building goes up, and the cottages provide a larger bonus to that tier 1, 5% per level. That all totals to one modified level. So basically you take the base resource times the total percentage provided by all the cottages touching it, and that produces the subtotal. However, there is also an overboost building. The overboost building is a modifier as a percentage applied after the subtotal, and that's huge. It's important to understand that you're dealing with a base number modified by the first tier, the cumulative total of the first tier, which is cottages and natural resources, and then again by the overbooster. So you actually get the modifier on your modifier for a compound effect. So it's pretty important to understand how the synergies of those buildings work together. Again, the same is true for stone, wood, and iron. As far as what to produce, which portions to in which area, typically what you end up with is in your city sandwich configuration, which there's lots of posts on this. I assume people have seen the diagram. You have, your row of cottages and/or resources. You have your row of production, and it's one row at a time, alternating back and forth. So what ends up happening is in the middle rows, you have a resource being affected by the modifier rows on both sides, as well as ideally touching every single resource touching a booster. So you end up with these three on this side and the same thing on this side, these three over boosters. What that does is in this configuration, which I consider the ideal inner city configuration, you have every resource touching an overbooster. So what you end up is clustering around the overbooster. So this one here is servicing these 5 locations, and then this one here is servicing this cluster of 6, and then this one for this cluster of 5, and so on. Then basically you have the same thing over here. Bottom serving 5, middle serving 6, and the top serving 5 as well. As far as balancing between natural resources, one thing I wanted to cover really quick about cottages. This is a town fairly early in its stage of development. I do produce, ultimately these elements here would be destroyed for cottages at the high levels. However, I've heard a lot of people talking about they get a brand new town and they go in, the first thing they do is destroy all the resources. That is the worst thing you can do. First of all, the last thing you want to do is spend all that time destroying resources while that town is producing nothing. Second, you also want to utilize the resources during the building stage. For example, these 2 locations here, obviously you want to destroy any resource in the production row, but in the booster row, that resource right there for stone is as good as a level 5 cottage. There is no reason to spend 2 hours destroying it and another, 45 minutes or so building a cottage to provide the exact same bonus. So in this particular town, you'll notice I'm actually now finally getting rid of the iron mines and some of the other stuff. But as far as the basic natural resources, I'm keeping what's there until I need to destroy it. And there's no reason not to have, at the very least, get in there and in the holes, lay your town out the way you're going to, but in the holes create, even with all the resources here originally, the first thing I did was built a bunch of buildings, and I filled in everything I could fill in, then I destroyed the resources. So that first night while I slept, the resources were being destroyed. I was also producing 2,000 or 3,000 of each an hour while I'm destroying those resources. So anyway, that's about it for the inner city. I want to talk briefly about the farm. The farm is the same basic idea. The only difference is that it needs open fields. So in the case of a farm, you have the adjacent open field areas are providing that first level bonus, and then the lakes are providing the second bonus. There's not a huge demand for food, so you don't want to overproduce food, but it is something that you'll need at least a steady supply of as you build up armies for raiding, later armies for war, and as well as 50,000 every moonstone, and what is it, another 25,000 to settle, if I recall. So what I'm doing with food production is basically building my farms opportunistically. Every time I come to a town, I always destroy water in the inner city because the value of the sandwich is way too good to leave water in a town in there. But out here in the outer areas, I actually plan my outer city around trying to do my best to leave those water lakes in place with the towns around them. Now in this particular case, there will never be a mill attached to this farm because it's a waste on a two-lake configuration. However, this is designed so that later, if I need this much farm production, I'll have another one here, another one here if I recall, and another one here. And when I have two farms like this adjacent to one lake, then it is worth the mill. However, when in the grand scheme you're looking at total production per unit slot, and to take a mill to modify one farm is simply not worth it. It kills a field. I've done the math. It just isn't worth doing. So anyway, the other thing about a farm is the base production goes up massively. They're very expensive to build up and level, but their base production goes up. So unless I'm way over on food right now, or not way over, but I'm good on food, so I'm not upgrading these. But I upgrade my farms pretty quickly to level 9 and 10 when I can. There's another one of those ideal configurations. That pretty well covers stone, wood, iron, and food. I'm going to take a moment to cover a little piece on gold. One thing really quick, and I'm going to keep this under 10 minutes, so I'm going to go fast. This configuration is not ideal, but basically gold is produced by townhouses that provide taxation, and then markets give you up to a 20% maximum modifier, which is not that great really, and a harbor which gives you a 50%. So the best move here, these two markets are not ideal side by side. This should actually be, if I was really worried about configuring for gold, I'd have a full wrap of townhouses around the market, and then actually that pattern would continue. But the most important thing to me is to position your townhouses so that they will be next to a harbor when you do build it. And then the markets, I'm not building markets to enhance my gold production. My markets are incidental to needing the carts to trade and transport and settle. So as long as I'm building a market, though, I might as well position it to enhance the townhouses as much as I can. So don't use this as a configuration. This is like my first city. It's the only city I've ever even bothered building any kind of gold production in. Just really quick, the ideal configuration for gold is it would be townhouse here, 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 and here, and then another market here. And if the wall wasn't here, you'd basically end up with a full wrap of townhouses with the market staggered every other row. Kind of like a big checkerboard setup, I guess. That's all I'm going to cover in this video. Thanks for watching.